Amara sat outside a small shelter in the city of Ibadan, holding her little son, Kola, close to her chest. The night air was cold and the wind blew through her torn shawl. She had only one bowl of rice left, sitting in a small plastic plate beside her. It was all they had for the day. Kola looked up at her with sleepy eyes, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "Mommy, are we going to eat now?" he asked in a weak voice. Amara looked at him and forced a small smile. "Yes, my dear, soon," she said. But deep down she felt pain. That bowl of rice was the last bit of food they had. She didn't know when they would eat again. As she looked around, she noticed a woman sitting by the roadside, wrapped in an old piece of cloth. The woman looked tired, her face lined with age and hardship. Her hair was gray, her hands trembling as she tried to keep warm. People walked past her without even looking, some even turning their faces away. Amara watched her for a while. The woman looked so weak, so hungry that Amara's heart began to ache. She turned back to Kola, who was still waiting quietly beside her. "Mama, can we eat now?" he asked again. Amara hesitated. She looked at the bowl of rice, then at the woman again. She could see the woman's lips moving slightly as if she were praying for help. Amara closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She didn't have much, but she knew what it felt like to be hungry and helpless. She whispered softly to herself, "If I were in her place, I would hope someone would help me too." Without saying another word, Amara stood up and picked up the bowl of rice. Kola looked at her with confusion. "Mommy, where are you going?" he asked. Amara smiled gently and said, "Wait here, my dear. I'll be back." She walked slowly toward the old woman, her heart beating fast. The woman looked up, surprised, as Amara knelt beside her. "Ma," Amara said softly, "please take this food and eat. You need it more than we do." The woman stared at her, eyes wide and wet. "My child," she whispered, "you don't even know me. Why would you give me your food?" Amara smiled faintly. "Because I know what hunger feels like," she said. "And I don't want you to feel it tonight." The woman's hands trembled as she reached out for the bowl. "May God bless you, my daughter," she said in a shaking voice. Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks as she took the food and began to eat slowly, carefully, as if she didn't believe it was real. Amara sat beside her for a while, watching quietly. The woman tried to share the food back with her, but Amara shook her head. "Please eat," she said kindly. "My son and I will manage." The woman looked at her again. "You have a child?" Amara nodded. "Yes, his name is Kola. He's waiting for me over there." The woman smiled weakly. "You are a good mother. You're a good person. People like you are rare." Amara looked down and said, "I don't know if I'm good. I just can't walk away when someone needs help." The old woman nodded slowly. "The world needs more hearts like yours." She ate a few more bites, then looked up at the sky. "I've met many people in my life, but I won't forget this night." Amara smiled and said, "Please don't worry, Ma. You'll be fine." For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The city was noisy in the distance, cars honking, people talking, and music coming from a nearby shop, but around them it felt calm. Finally, the woman said softly, "What is your name?" "Amara," she replied. "Amara," the woman repeated with a smile. "It suits you. It means grace, doesn't it?" Amara nodded shyly. "Yes, Ma. My mother gave me that name." The woman smiled again. "She gave you the right name. You truly are full of grace." Amara felt her eyes sting with tears. She wasn't used to hearing kind words. Life had been so hard since her husband left. She worked small jobs during the day, sometimes washing clothes or selling fruits by the road, but it was never enough. Some nights they slept hungry. But she always told herself things would get better. After a while, the woman finished eating and handed back the empty plate. "Thank you, my child," she said softly. "I don't have anything to give you, but I will pray for you." Amara smiled. "That is more than enough, Ma." The woman looked at her deeply. "One day your kindness will return to you in ways you cannot imagine." Amara didn't really understand what she meant, but she smiled politely. "Good night, Ma. Please stay safe." She stood up and walked back to Kola, who was waiting with sleepy eyes. He looked at her empty hands and frowned. "Mommy, where's the food?" Amara knelt beside him and hugged him tightly. "I gave it to the old woman," she said softly. Kola looked confused for a moment, then nodded slowly. "It's okay, Mommy. Maybe someone will give us food tomorrow." Amara smiled proudly at her little boy. Even at his young age, he understood kindness. "Yes, my dear," she said. "Tomorrow will be better." They lay down on their old mat beside the shelter, with Kola resting his head on her arm. The night grew colder, but Amara held him close, whispering softly, You're my everything, my son. As long as we have each other, we'll be fine. Kola soon fell asleep, his small body warm against hers. Amara stayed awake, looking up at the stars. She thought about the old woman and hoped she would be safe through the night. Far away, the woman sat quietly, finishing the last bit of rice. She looked up at the same sky and whispered, "That young mother, she has the heart of gold. The world needs to see her." The woman closed her eyes, her heart full of warmth. She knew that what had just happened was special, something she would remember for the rest of her life. Back at the shelter, Amara finally drifted off to sleep, not knowing that her simple act of kindness had just changed the course of her life. She didn't know who that woman really was. She didn't know that the woman she fed that night was not just an old stranger, but someone whose name carried great power and wealth in the city. But none of that mattered to Amara. Her kindness had come from the heart, not from hope of reward, not from fear of loss. She helped simply because she couldn't bear to see another person suffer. The night passed quietly, and by morning the old woman was gone. But the small note she left behind on the mat beside Amara read, "Your light shines brightest in the dark." Amara read it and smiled, though she didn't understand it fully. She kept the note in her pocket and went on with her day, still unaware that life was about to change in ways she could never imagine. That night in Ibadan, a homeless mother gave away her last meal. But in doing so, she planted the seed of a miracle that would soon grow into something far greater than she could ever dream. The woman looked at Amara for a long moment before speaking. Her eyes were tired, her voice soft but warm. "My name is Mama Grace," she said, smiling weakly. "And you, my child, have done something few people would do. Only a true heart gives when it has nothing left." Amara shook her head gently. "It's nothing, Ma," she replied. "We all need help sometimes. If I can help, even in a small way, I will." Mama Grace looked at her closely, studying her face as if trying to remember it. "What is your name?" she asked. "Amara," she said simply. "And this is my son, Kola." Kola waved shyly, hiding half his face behind his mother's arm. Mama Grace smiled and reached out her hand slowly. "You have a good mother, young man," she said kindly. "Don't ever forget that." Kola smiled a little, though his eyes still looked sleepy and tired. Amara sat beside Mama Grace for a few minutes, watching her eat the rice slowly. Every bite looked painful, as if her body had forgotten what food felt like. When Mama Grace was done, she set the empty bowl down carefully and said, "My child, you have given me strength tonight. You don't know what this means to me." Amara smiled softly. "You don't need to thank me, Ma. I just did what my heart told me to do." Mama Grace nodded, her eyes glistening in the dim light. "You may think it's nothing," she said, "but sometimes the smallest act of love can change a life. Yours will be blessed for this." Amara didn't say anything. She was tired and the night air was cold. She only smiled again and wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders. "Where do you live?" Mama Grace asked after a moment. "Here," Amara said quietly, pointing to the corner near the shelter. "The mat over there is ours. We stay there most nights." Mama Grace's eyes softened with sadness. "You and your child sleep out here?" Amara nodded. "Yes, Ma. We lost our home some months ago. I lost my job too. But I believe things will get better." The older woman looked at her carefully. "And your husband?" Amara lowered her eyes. "He left when I was pregnant," she said softly. "It has just been me and Kola since then." For a while there was silence between them. The sound of cars passing by filled the air, and the smell of roasted corn drifted from a nearby stall. Mama Grace sighed and said, "You have suffered much, yet your heart is still kind. That is rare." Amara forced a small laugh. "I don't think much about it. I just keep moving." Mama Grace reached out and held her hand gently. "Never stop being who you are," she said. "Life has a way of rewarding pure hearts when they least expect it." Amara nodded slowly, though she didn't fully believe it. "Thank you, Ma," she said. "Your words mean a lot." Mama Grace smiled. "My dear, I am old. I have seen rich people lose everything and poor people rise higher than they ever dreamed. The world turns in strange ways. But one thing never changes: kindness always returns." Amara listened quietly. Her heart felt warm from the woman's gentle words. For a brief moment she forgot about her hunger, her tired body, and her worries for tomorrow. Mama Grace looked up at the stars and whispered something under her breath. Then she turned back to Amara and said, "You don't know it yet, but tonight is not the end of your story. It is just the beginning." Amara smiled politely, not really understanding. "You speak like a pastor, Ma," she said with a little laugh. Mama Grace laughed too, a soft sound that echoed in the quiet street. Maybe I've just lived long enough to know how life works, she said. Sometimes blessings come when we least expect them. Kola tugged at his mother's shawl. Mommy, I'm sleepy, he whispered. Amara nodded. Okay, my dear. Let's go and rest. She turned to Mama Grace and said, Ma, please take care of yourself. The night is cold. Mama Grace smiled again. I will, my child. And may heaven take care of you too. Amara and Kola walked back to their small mat. The ground was hard, but Amara spread her shawl for Kola to sleep on. As the little boy closed his eyes, she turned to look at Mama Grace one last time. The old woman was sitting quietly, still looking up at the stars. Amara thought she saw her lips moving in prayer, and for some reason, that made her heart feel peaceful. The next morning, Amara woke up early just as the sun was rising. The street was already busy with sellers shouting and buses honking. She turned to where Mama Grace had been sitting, but the woman was gone. Amara frowned, wondering where she went. On the ground where the woman had sat was a folded piece of paper. Amara picked it up and opened it carefully. The handwriting was neat but shaky. It said, "Your kindness will come back to you one day." Amara smiled as she read the words. She didn't know why, but they gave her hope. She kept the paper and tucked it safely inside her small bag. Later that day she walked around the market trying to find work. Some people turned her away, others ignored her completely. Still, she didn't lose faith. She kept walking from one shop to another, asking if anyone needed help cleaning, cooking, or selling. Every time she felt tired or hopeless, she remembered Mama Grace's words. Only a true heart gives when it has nothing. Those words gave her strength. By evening she returned to the shelter, holding Kola's hand. They had managed to earn a little money by helping a fruit seller pack her stall. It wasn't much, but it was enough to buy a loaf of bread. As they ate together, Kola said quietly, "Mommy, do you think the old woman is okay?" Amara smiled. "I believe she is," she said softly. "Good people always find their way." Kola nodded and took another bite of bread. "I liked her," he said. "She talked nice." Amara nodded too. Yes, she did. Night came again and Amara lay awake thinking about Mama Grace. Something about the old woman stayed in her mind. Her calm smile, her kind eyes, and the way she spoke with quiet wisdom. She wondered who Mama Grace really was. She looked too proud to be a beggar, too graceful to be living on the streets. But Amara didn't think much about it. She just prayed silently that the woman would be safe wherever she went. Before falling asleep, she took out the note and read it again under the dim streetlight. "Your kindness will come back to you one day." Amara closed her eyes and smiled. She didn't know how or when, but she believed that somehow, those words were true. The night was peaceful and a soft breeze blew through the shelter. Amara wrapped her arm around Kola and whispered, "Good night, my son. Good things will come to us soon." Far away, in a large house at the edge of the city, Mama Grace sat by her window, thinking about the young woman who had fed her. She was not just an old woman in need, she was the mother of one of the richest men in Nigeria. She had gone out that night to see if kindness still lived in the hearts of ordinary people. And she had found it, in a poor mother who had given her last meal without expecting anything in return. Mama Grace smiled to herself and whispered, "Yes, my child, your kindness will come back to you soon." The stars shone brightly that night as if they, too, knew that something beautiful had just begun. A week passed since Amara met Mama Grace. Life was still hard, but her heart felt lighter somehow. Every day she woke up early, helped a few traders in the market and earned small money for food. She kept the note Mama Grace left for her folded neatly inside her bag. Whenever things got difficult, she read it again, "Your kindness will come back to you one day." Those words gave her strength. One morning while she was sweeping near the market stalls, she overheard two women talking. "They say there are job openings at Adewale's place," one of them said. "They're hiring cleaners and kitchen helpers." Amara turned quickly. "Excuse me," she said politely. "Where is that place?" The woman looked at her curiously. "It's a new restaurant in the city center. Big people go there. You can try your luck, but they don't hire just anyone." Amara thanked her and smiled. As she walked back to the shelter, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe this was her chance. Maybe it was time for something new. That night she told Kola about it. The little boy's eyes brightened. "Mommy, if you get the job, will we have more food?" Amara laughed softly. "Yes, my dear. And maybe even a real room to sleep in." Kola clapped his hands with joy. "Then you will get it, Mommy. You're the best cleaner in the world." Amara smiled at his confidence, though she wasn't sure. Still, she promised herself she would try. The next morning she woke up early and put on her cleanest clothes. They were old and faded, but she washed and ironed them the best she could. She braided her hair neatly and took Kola to stay with a woman who watched children at the shelter. Then she began her long walk to the city center. When she reached Adewale's place, her eyes widened in amazement. The building was tall and beautiful, with glass doors that shone under the morning sun. Elegant cars parked outside, and the sweet smell of food drifted from inside. She stood for a moment, feeling small and nervous. People around her looked rich and confident. She clutched her small bag and whispered to herself, "You can do this, Amara. Just try." At the entrance, a guard looked at her suspiciously. "What do you want here, madam?" "I came to apply for the cleaning job," she said softly. He looked her up and down but then pointed toward the reception. "Go in. The manager is inside." Amara thanked him and walked in carefully, afraid of stepping on the shiny floor. The restaurant was even more beautiful inside, golden lights, flowers, and smiling waiters moving quickly between tables. She had never seen a place so fancy in her life. At the front desk, a young woman smiled at her. "Good morning. Are you here for the interview?" "Yes, ma," Amara replied politely. "Please wait over there. The manager will see you soon." Amara nodded and sat on one of the soft chairs. Her hands trembled as she looked around. She watched people in elegant clothes laughing and eating. It felt like another world. While she waited, she whispered a small prayer. "God, please just give me this chance. I will work hard. I just need one door to open." Minutes passed slowly. Then suddenly she heard a stir near the entrance. People began to whisper and look in one direction. The waiters straightened their uniforms and even the manager rushed out quickly. Amara turned her head to see what was happening. A woman had just entered, but not just any woman. She looked rich and graceful, dressed in fine clothes and wearing a bright smile. Several guards and assistants followed her closely. Everyone greeted her with deep respect. Amara's heart skipped a beat. That face, she knew it. Her eyes widened. It was Mama Grace. But she didn't look like the weak old woman Amara had helped that cold night. No, this Mama Grace looked strong, elegant, and important. Her head was held high, and even her steps looked powerful. Amara's lips parted in shock. She could hardly breathe. People around her whispered loudly. "That's Madame Grace, the billionaire's mother," one woman said. "She owns half of this place. She's Mr. Adewale's mother." Mr. Adewale. The name sounded familiar. Amara realized she had heard it before. He was one of the richest men in the country, the owner of many businesses, including this restaurant. Amara's heart pounded fast. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. The woman she had given her last meal to, the one she thought was just a poor stranger, was the mother of a billionaire. Mama Grace walked further into the restaurant, smiling kindly as the staff greeted her. Her eyes moved around the room slowly. Then suddenly she stopped. Her gaze landed on Amara. For a moment they simply looked at each other. Time seemed to stop. Amara felt frozen in her chair, unsure what to do. Did Mama Grace remember her? Would she even recognize her now? Then, to Amara's surprise, Mama Grace's face lit up. She smiled warmly and began walking toward her. The guards tried to follow, but she waved them back. When she reached Amara, she said softly, "My dear Amara." Everyone turned to look. The room went quiet. The manager, confused, stared at the two women. "Madame Grace, you know her?" he asked carefully. Mama Grace nodded, still smiling. "Of course I know her," she said. "She's the reason I'm here today." Amara's heart raced. She stood up quickly, bowing her head in respect. "Ma," she whispered. "I didn't know. I didn't know you were." Mama Grace stopped her gently. "Shoo," she said. "You didn't need to know. That night, you saw me as a person, not as someone with money or power. You gave me your last meal without asking anything in return. That kind of kindness is rare." Everyone around them listened in silence. The workers looked at Amara with surprise. Some of them even smiled proudly. Mama Grace turned to the manager and said firmly, "This young woman should not be waiting for an interview. Give her a job immediately." The manager nodded quickly. "Yes, Ma. Right away." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Ma, you don't have to do this," she said softly. Mama Grace smiled kindly. "I'm not doing this as a favor. I'm doing it because you deserve it. You helped me when you had nothing. Now let me help you." Amara covered her mouth, trying not to cry. The memory of that cold night flashed before her eyes. The rice, the hunger, the old woman shivering by the road. She had never expected that small act to come back in such a big way. Mama Grace reached out and took her hand gently. "You see, Amara, sometimes life hides blessings in simple moments. That night, you didn't just feed me, you showed me that goodness still exists in this world. The manager guided Amara to his office to complete her papers. As she walked past the workers, many of them smiled and nodded respectfully. Some even whispered, "She must be special." After signing her papers, Amara came back out, still in shock. Mama Grace waited for her, her smile warm and proud. "I told you, my child," Mama Grace said softly. "Your kindness will come back to you one day. Today is that day." Amara could not speak. Her heart was full. She just knelt slightly and said, "Thank you, Ma. Thank you for believing in me." Mama Grace lifted her up and hugged her gently. "No, Amara. Thank you for reminding me that kindness is still alive." As Amara left the restaurant that day with her new job, she looked up at the bright sign that read Adewale's Place. She smiled to herself, whispering the words she now understood completely: kindness never goes to waste. The restaurant was silent. Every eye turned toward Mama Grace and Amara. The sound of plates, music, and laughter stopped. No one could believe what they were seeing. The billionaire's mother was hugging a woman who had come to apply for a cleaner's job. Amara stood stiff, unsure of what to do. Her heart was beating so fast she could hardly breathe. She had no idea what was happening. One moment, she was sitting quietly waiting for her interview. The next, the most powerful woman in the city was holding her hand. Mama Grace smiled warmly and said, "My dear child, I never thought I would see you again." Everyone around them looked confused. The manager stood frozen, and a few waiters whispered to each other. Amara could hear people murmuring, "Who is she? Why is Madame Grace talking to her?" Before Amara could speak, a tall man walked in through the glass doors. His suit was fine, his watch shining under the lights. He was handsome, confident, and surrounded by people who followed him wherever he went. The whispers grew louder. "That's Mr. Adewale," someone said. "The owner." Mama Grace turned and smiled proudly. "My son," she said softly, calling him closer. Mr. Adewale walked toward her, surprised to see his mother standing in the middle of the restaurant with everyone watching. "Mother," he said gently, "you're here today? You could have called me." Mama Grace laughed lightly. "I didn't come for you, my son. I came for her." She pointed to Amara. Adewale looked at the young woman standing beside his mother. Her clothes were plain, her hands rough from hard work, and her eyes wide with confusion. He frowned slightly. "You came for her?" Mama Grace nodded proudly. "Yes, my son. This is the woman I told you about." Adewale's expression softened a little, though he still looked puzzled. "The woman you told me about?" Mama Grace took a step forward, still holding Amara's hand. Her voice was calm but filled with emotion. "Yes," she said. "The one who gave me her last meal when I was disguised as a poor woman." The crowd gasped. Even Amara's breath caught in her throat. Adewale blinked, unsure he heard correctly. "You mean, when you disappeared that night?" Mama Grace nodded. "Yes, that night. I went out wearing old clothes, wanting to see if kindness still lived in this world. People passed by me like I didn't exist. Some even laughed. But then this young woman came. She had nothing, but she shared her only food with me. Everyone in the room was silent, hanging on her every word. She didn't know who I was," Mama Grace continued. "She didn't ask for anything. She just saw a hungry old woman and chose to help." Adewale turned to look at Amara again. This time, his eyes were filled with respect. "You gave my mother food?" Amara's voice trembled as she spoke. "Yes, sir. I didn't know who she was. She looked hungry. I just wanted to help." Mama Grace squeezed her hand. "You see, my son? She didn't do it because she wanted something. She did it because her heart is good. That is real wealth. That is what money cannot buy." Adewale said nothing for a moment. His eyes softened as he looked at Amara's face. He saw the tiredness in her eyes but also the quiet strength. He turned to his mother. "You mean she didn't know she was helping you?" Mama Grace smiled. "Not at all. In fact, she gave me her last meal." A shocked whisper spread through the restaurant. People stared at Amara as if seeing her for the first time. A few even wiped tears from their eyes. Adewale ran his hand over his face and took a deep breath. "Mother, I don't know what to say. I don't think I've ever met anyone who would do something like that." Mama Grace nodded. "That is why I wanted to find her again. I needed to show you what true kindness looks like." She looked back at Amara and smiled. "You thought I was just an old woman that night? You didn't know who I was. Yet you gave me everything you had. That act touched my soul." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Ma, I didn't do anything special," she said softly. "I just couldn't let you go hungry." Mama Grace shook her head. No, my dear. You did something very special. The world has forgotten how to care, but you reminded me that goodness still lives. Adewale looked at his mother, then at Amara again. Mother, you said she's looking for work? Yes, Mama Grace said proudly. She came here today to apply for a cleaner's job. Adewale smiled faintly. Then she won't be cleaning floors in this restaurant, he said. Everyone turned toward him. Amara looked shocked. Sir? Adewale continued, someone who can give away their last meal has a heart big enough to change lives. My foundation needs people like that. From today you'll be working with us there. You'll help us manage donations for families who need support. Amara's mouth opened slightly. Me? She whispered, pointing at herself. Adewale smiled warmly. Yes, you. You've already proved what true generosity looks like. Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ma. I don't even know what to say. Mama Grace hugged her again. Just keep being who you are, my child. The world needs more hearts like yours. The crowd began to clap softly. Workers smiled, some with tears in their eyes. A few customers stood up and joined the applause. It was a moment none of them would forget. Mama Grace turned to everyone and said, we should all remember that money and power mean nothing without compassion. This young woman who slept on the streets has more wealth in her heart than many who dine in golden rooms. Adewale nodded in agreement. My mother is right. It's easy to give when you have everything. But giving when you have nothing, that is true wealth. Amara stood quietly, still overwhelmed. She couldn't believe this was happening. Just a week ago she was hungry and hopeless. Now she was being offered a new life by the very people she once fed. Mama Grace wiped her eyes gently. When I met you that night, I saw light in you, she said. Now the world will see it too. Adewale looked at his mother with pride. Mother, you were right to go out that night. You found something money can't buy, kindness. Mama Grace smiled. And you, my son, must learn from it. Never forget that true success comes from helping others. He nodded respectfully. I won't, Mother. Then he turned to Amara again. I'll have my assistant help you settle everything, your salary, your housing, and anything else you need. You've earned it. Amara tried to speak, but her voice broke with emotion. Sir, I don't know how to thank you. I never thought something like this could happen to someone like me. Adewale smiled gently. You don't need to thank me. You already gave us more than money ever could. You gave hope. Mama Grace placed her hand on Amara's shoulder. Your kindness was a seed, my dear. And now it is growing. The restaurant filled with applause again, louder this time. People smiled warmly as Amara wiped her tears, still holding Mama Grace's hand. She looked up at the ceiling, whispering softly, Thank you, God. I understand now. Kindness never goes to waste. And for the first time in a long while, Amara felt peace, the kind that comes when goodness finally finds its way home. The sun shone brightly over the city of Ibadan as a gentle breeze moved through the large compound of Adewale's Foundation for Hope. It was a big day, a charity event that had gathered leaders, journalists, and people from all walks of life. The stage was decorated with colorful flowers and banners read, Kindness builds the future. Amara stood quietly at one side of the stage, her son Kola holding her hand. He was wearing a neat school uniform, his eyes full of pride as he looked up at his mother. It was hard to believe how much their lives had changed in just a few months. Not long ago they had slept on the streets and gone hungry. But today, Amara was one of the foundation's coordinators. She helped poor families, arranged food drives, and found shelters for single mothers. She worked with passion, always remembering the nights when she herself had nothing. Mr. Adewale stood nearby, speaking with a few guests. He looked different from the man she had first met, softer, kinder, more thoughtful. Losing his father years ago had made him cold, but watching his mother and Amara together had changed something in him. He now understood that wealth meant little if it did not touch lives. Mama Grace, wearing a bright blue lace dress, smiled warmly as she waved to the crowd. Everyone admired her, not just because she was the mother of a billionaire but because of her humility and wisdom. The event began with speeches and songs from a local choir. Then it was time for Mama Grace to speak. She walked slowly to the microphone, her smile calm and full of peace. Cameras flashed from every direction. My people, she began softly, her voice filled with emotion. Today is not about money. It is about heart. The crowd grew silent, listening closely. Months ago, Mama Grace continued, I went out dressed as a poor woman, trying to learn if true kindness still existed in our world. I met many who turned away. But then a woman, a stranger, gave me her last meal. She had nothing, yet she gave everything. A quiet murmur ran through the crowd. Many already knew the story from the news, but hearing it from Mama Grace herself brought new emotion. She turned and gestured toward Amara. That woman is here with me today. Everyone turned to look. Amara felt her heart beat fast. She wasn't used to standing in front of so many people. Kola squeezed her hand tightly, smiling up at her. Mama Grace continued, her eyes glistening with tears. Her name is Amara. She taught me that love and kindness are the greatest riches any person can have. Her heart is worth more than all the gold in this world. Applause filled the air. People stood up, clapping, cheering. Some even wiped away tears. Amara tried to hold back her emotions, but tears rolled down her cheeks. She bowed her head slightly, whispering a soft thank you to God. Mr. Adewale stepped forward, holding a microphone. His voice was steady but full of feeling. My mother has always taught me that money should be used to heal, not to harm. But Amara showed me what real giving looks like. Because of her, this foundation will now focus on helping single mothers and homeless children. The crowd clapped again. Some shouted her name in admiration. Amara couldn't believe this was real. She remembered the cold nights when she and Kola slept in a corner of an old building, praying for a miracle. Now she was standing on a stage beside the city's most respected family. Mama Grace turned toward her and said softly, "Come, my dear." Amara walked closer. Mama Grace held her hand and raised it high before everyone. "Let this woman's story remind us that no act of kindness is ever wasted," she said. "When you give from your heart, life gives back in ways you cannot imagine." Mr. Adewale smiled proudly. "It's true. Amara gave my mother food when she had none for herself. In return, we can only give her what she deserves: dignity, peace, and a chance to live her dreams." He looked at her with kind eyes. "Amara, you have become family to us. The foundation is yours as much as it is ours. You've shown us that hope lives in even the smallest act." Amara's voice trembled as she replied, "Sir, I am deeply grateful. I didn't help your mother because I wanted anything. I just couldn't walk away from someone in pain. But today I've learned that when we give with love, God never forgets." Mama Grace smiled warmly. "Yes, my child. You gave me food that night, but you also gave me faith in humanity. You made me see that goodness still lives among us." The applause grew louder. A few reporters came closer, taking pictures of Amara, Mama Grace, and Adewale standing together. As the event ended, people came forward to shake Amara's hand. Some mothers hugged her, saying her story gave them hope. One woman whispered, "You make me believe that miracles still happen." Later, after the guests left, Amara stood quietly on the balcony overlooking the garden. The evening sun painted the sky orange. She felt peace in her heart, a deep, quiet peace that she hadn't known in years. Kola ran up to her, his small face glowing with joy. "Mama, did you hear what the big man said? He said you are family." Amara laughed softly, bending down to hug him. "Yes, my son. We are blessed." He smiled proudly. "And now I can go to school every day." She nodded, brushing his hair gently. "Yes, my dear. You will learn and grow. One day you will help others too." Kola grinned. "Like you helped Grandma Grace?" Amara smiled, her eyes wet. "Yes, my love. Just like that." Mama Grace walked up behind them quietly, holding 2 cups of juice. "You both deserve a rest," she said warmly. Amara stood quickly, smiling. "Thank you, Ma." Mama Grace handed her one of the cups. "No need to thank me, my dear. You've done more for me than I could ever do for you." They sat together, watching the children playing in the garden. The laughter of little ones filled the air. Children who were once hungry, now happy and cared for because of the foundation's work. Mama Grace sighed gently. "You see, Amara, that one bowl of rice did more than fill my stomach. It built this." She waved her hand toward the lively compound. "All this goodness started with your small act of love." Amara smiled humbly. "I only did what I felt was right, Ma." Mama Grace nodded slowly. "That's what makes it special. The world changes one kind act at a time." As the sun set, the golden light touched their faces. Amara felt warmth deep in her soul. She thought about the nights when she prayed for help, never knowing that her answer would come through the very person she once fed. Kola sat beside her, eating a small plate of jollof rice. "Mama, are we rich now?" he asked with innocent curiosity. Amara smiled softly and kissed his forehead. "Yes, my son," she said. "But not because of money. We are rich because we have love." Mama Grace chuckled gently. "That's the truth, my dear. Real riches are not kept in the bank, they are kept in the heart. The sound of laughter, the smell of food, and the joy of giving filled the air. Everyone around the foundation felt the warmth of that truth. As the stars began to appear, Amara looked up and whispered a quiet prayer of thanks. Life had tested her, but kindness had carried her through. Her journey from a hungry mother on the streets to a respected woman at a charity event was proof that no good deed goes unnoticed.